Hello, everyone. Thank you for attending today's presentation. My name is Ryan White. I'm the president of DTI Integrated Business Solutions. And with me here in the room is Brad Simpson, who is the vice president of product and solution development for DTI. Today, we're going to be talking about challenges facing construction companies in 2020 and some of the ways that we're using technology to help construction companies overcome those challenges. So today's presentation is going to be broken down into two different parts. The first part of our time together today is about sharing our research. In our experience in working with construction companies, we hear a lot of the things that they're faced with. We went out and supported that with research online to come back with some ideas about what are the things that are keeping construction executives up at night and how to address those challenges. The second part of our presentation, we're going to turn it over to Brad, and he's going to share some of our technology, and he's going to pick a couple of use cases where our customers have used technology to address problems in their office. All right, so with that, we'll jump right on in. Top of almost every list of things that keep construction executives up at night has been risk and risk mitigation. No doubt that risk is a big category, and as you can see, it covers a lot of different areas of a construction company. So we'll pick one today to start with, and we're going to start with safety and discuss that, although we do acknowledge that each of these categories probably deserve their own time here. But before we dive in, I think one of the common things that we know is one of the best defenses against risk and the hazards and the problems that could come up with in any business is having good information. Good information supports better decision making, and better decision making is a great risk mitigation strategy. So let's dive in and see how we can use some of these tools when it comes to safety risk. Safety in itself is job site safety. Is certainly a top priority for every construction company that's out there. It's a part of every conference, every work group, and creating a strong safety program is extremely important. Now, technology can't prevent every accident from happening, but it is a tool that can be used to create and support strong safety programs. Couple of areas where we look to use technology to support safety programs, first of all, in training and certification tracking. Making sure that your employees receive the training and the knowledge that they need in order to conduct themselves in a proper manner on job site and support those operations at the job site is of critical importance. There are all kinds of learning management systems, documentation tools, and things that can help support and create the structure behind the organization to make sure that you're staying in compliance. Secondly, incident handling. When accidents do occur, how an organization responds is very important. So with today's technology, we have the ability to collect more information in a faster amount of time so that we ensure that the response given on site to any incident or near miss is appropriate and well documented. Lastly, I think one of the areas where technology can support safety and safety management programs is in the reporting requirements. Everybody's got to submit the OSHA reports on a regular basis, and making sure that those reports are complete and accurate and on time is just a system. It's a process. And the more we can put the guardrails up and control the processes, the more accurate that reporting is going to be. So one of the things we did when in preparation here, we looked at the OSHA website and looked at what were some of the most cited incidents in 2019 and where could technology play a part in maybe eliminating or minimizing some of those citations. So top of the list for the last 3 or 4 years was fall protection citations. You can see there over 6,010 violations, and further down the list, but still in the top 10, was fall protection and training requirements with 1,700 violations. A lot of these violations with the training requirements pertain to making sure people get the proper certification and that it's well documented. maintaining that accurate documentation is extremely important. And then should somebody fail their training program, making sure that they get retrained and they ultimately do pass the training requirements and that we documented that. So that's number one on the list. Number two on the list was hazard communication. 3,671 violations in 2019. Again, this is one where most of the citations were for inadequate training and failing to maintain proper documentation. So certainly there are systems available out there to help support those processes. Third on the list was powered industrial trucks with 2,093 violations. Again, the common theme here, certifications, trainings, and failing to evaluate drivers here on a regular basis. So there are systems and technology that make it very easy to put in a training requirement for an employee, entering a certification and an expiration of that certification, and then we can provide notifications 90, 120 days prior to those expirations so that people are aware that of upcoming expirations and take the appropriate action to make sure that employees can continue to come to work and be compliant with the regulations. So that's safety, a couple ideas there. Next, also, very, very high on the list, and it's labor shortages and labor costs. Most construction companies are facing the labor shortage challenge and finding trouble or having trouble filling with craft and trade positions on job sites. Lots of surveys done out there. Most people don't see that getting any better in the near term and are reporting that, yeah, they need to be better about filling their pipeline with skilled labor. So we're going to look at a couple of things here. So what is that labor shortage? Where does that impact construction company? Construction costs increased between 5 and 6% in 2019, and the majority of that increase in labor was attributed to rising labor costs. The implication of the rising labor costs, of course, increased overall project costs, requiring construction companies to raise their prices. In a number of instances, a lot of construction companies are seeing projects fall behind schedule because of the lack of availability of labor. When projects fall behind schedules, the carrying costs increase and projects become vulnerable to real margin loss there. In some instances, projects are canceled completely because of long project timelines and increased costs. The projects are no longer financially viable. So how are companies dealing with this? Well, the three most common ways companies are handling this is they're looking to pay overtime. So if you've got a skilled worker, keep them on the job site and keep paying them. Now, a couple downfalls of that. One, it definitely increases your labor rates and costs there, but also you're having people work long hours. They get tired, and when that happens, they're more prone to accidents or work that isn't up to quality and it needs to be redone. Other ways companies are handling this are they're finding anybody to take the job, even if they weren't trained for a particular skill, and they're just seeing, let's try and see if we can't get something there. Of course, again, the implication there is the work product that you're putting out. And finally, some people are just dealing with the project delays. Hopefully, those have been accounted for in the financial projections and project plans, but it does have an impact. Now, there are some things areas where technology can help. One area is what we're seeing companies looking to do is offset the increased skilled labor rates with savings in other areas. Looking for repetitive functions or things that can be automated or removed from the process in order to drive down the overall labor costs, or at least offset the increases that they're having to pay in some areas. Another really pretty cool area is looking for at new building methods and materials. For example, prefabrication, building modules or components of the construction project off-site and then bringing it on-site for integration into the overall project. And finally, another one that we'll touch on here again in just a minute, but improved collaboration between design and construction. having those two teams meet early and frequently before the build, and then again on a regular basis when the build is going on, improving that communication can help answer a lot of questions, remove confusion from the process. Now, we know in the future, we do expect there are a lot of things that are going to change to help bring down the overall labor costs. We're seeing a lot of technology and drones and robots and things on the work site, but we're not quite there yet. So in the meantime, what are some things that construction companies can do to help their labor challenges? Well, first and foremost, with a limited supply of labor, look to be the place that people want to work. Focus on your culture and the opportunities available for workers there, so that when somebody does enter the labor force or the labor market, you're going to be the company that's going to be at the top of the list. One of the other challenges that we know about labor and construction is the millennial generation seems less and less interested in construction as a career path. So anything that you can do to reach out to the millennial generation, whether that be through internships or educational institutions, trying to create some partnerships there, finding ways to get them excited about all of the really cool things that do happen in construction. As new technology enters, take advantage of that and introduce that through a variety of programs. Thirdly, and probably one of the most important ones is be the first to respond when qualified applicants reach out or enter the labor market. We recently completed a project for a construction company here who was having trouble finding truck drivers. And one of their best ways where they found the most success is they could be early to respond to somebody when they were submitting an application. Can we show them that we're a responsive, proactive company that they want to work for that treats their employees well? And that first interaction with your company through either the application or the job hunt process will be a good reflection and will do a lot to help you get the available labor that's out there. So thirdly, cost reductions. I found this quote, and I thought it was right on the money, from Brad Robinson, former CFMA chair. If you're not going to get more money from an owner, you have to find ways to cut costs, whether it's direct labor or overhead, and manage that margin to make a profit. Brad understands that the margins in construction are thin, and it's all about how you manage those costs that can make or break an organization. In a recent study by PlanGrid and FMI, they found that there was about $177 billion in wages and salary in the U.S. spent and lost because of communication and process issues. Now, diving through that report a little deeper, they found one of the contributing factors being that they found an average of about 15 hours each week project managers were spending on tasks that could either be automated or eliminated. So there is waste and areas to gain back ground there if we take a hard look at our processes and how we can automate and improve some of them. So a couple of ways that companies are reducing costs is improving collaboration. We mentioned it earlier, but the collaboration between the design and the construction team. Get goals aligned between both teams right up front. Work with each other so you can, construction companies that know how to put something together and complete a construction project can give feedback to the design, to the architects, so that the design ideas of the architects are met and built in a way that is cost efficient for the construction team. Likewise, that collaboration between the design and the build teams really helps to minimize change orders and rework. With better planning and answering those questions is close to the time that they happen. Stop tolerating margin fade. Another great area that again reflects Brad's comments earlier. Margin fade happens when people aren't staying on top of the project and they don't have all of the information available. Poor estimating, slow field production are contributing factors there. So if we can find ways to give project managers and site managers the information to know what's going on in that site, keep them up to date, and require them to report back on budgeted hours versus used hours. Really keeping a tight control over the project performance is important. And lastly, in the cost section here, stop doing free change orders. In any project-related business, even in the IT world, change orders are something that we know that they happen. And creating a solid change order management process can really help things go smoothly so that your company doesn't lose margin to change orders and things that just happen along the way. Make sure you have those systems in place, get the proper approvals prior to any work beginning, and don't put that process off to the end of a project. So get those change orders understood and communicated and worked into the overall project with everybody being aware of what's going on. Very important. So as we look at this, how can technology help? We've got three main areas where technology, we see companies deploying technology in a productive manner to help these costs or help these issues for construction companies. And then we added one more. So structured data and speed, three areas that technology is really good at. So let's put the structure in place where we create the systems and the workflows that keep work moving through a system in the way that it's supposed to move. We eliminate the rogue processes. We put the notifications in place to keep things moving as it should. Second, with those systems in place, we're able to collect a lot more data about our processes. With that data, then we can communicate more to the decision makers about what is happening in a more real-time way to help them make those better decisions. And then thirdly, speed. When we look at technology, it definitely has a way of improving the performance overall. If we can take out the friction points in our business processes, then we'll see the velocity of our business improve dramatically. Being able to reduce approval times from days to minutes will just help the overall momentum of projects and work getting done throughout our organization. Now, we realize that not every company can afford all of these great technology investments out there. In construction, I think finally is at approaching 1% or of total revenue spend on the IT department budget, but we know that's still really tight. So one way for any construction company or anybody with a smaller IT budget, look for ways that you can possibly outsource those functions to somebody else that does have the technology that you're looking for. It's a way that you can access all the advantage of that, but only pay for what you need. So there are a few ways that technology can have an impact on these challenges. But it's important to keep in mind that technology itself is not the answer. For every new application that you add to your business, you're adding another information silo, another application that somebody, your users, you're asking them to learn or to use on a regular basis, and something else that your IT department that's probably already taxed is going to have to support. That's the IT sprawl. And thirdly, a new application is yet another possible point of failure. So as you look at applying technology, it doesn't come without its inherent problems as well. So there needs to be a well thought out implementation strategy. So how do we accomplish that? First, suggestions on how to get projects going and getting things started is we see that all of these projects need to really start at the top of the organization. You need to have somebody that's tied into the executive vision for your company to help develop the IT vision for the company. Once you have alignment between the overall corporate strategy and their technology strategy, then the projects that are available out there start to take shape, and you can see which ones really make the cut and which ones don't. You can start putting some priority to those and then focus on what your rollout plan can be there. And just a side note here, it doesn't always mean that you need to start with the highest ROI project out there. Sometimes some of the smaller projects to get the ball rolling that are more straightforward, not very complex, but do have some significant benefit can be a great way to capture some early wins and again, get that momentum going. So once you have that priority of projects that you want to attack, lastly, look for a platform that can support multiple projects on your priority list. Again, we talked about the information silos and the IT sprawl. Try to minimize that as much as possible. It doesn't mean that you have to go buy or build a big monolithic ERP or complex system out there, but you should have a system that's flexible enough to handle multiple applications. Look for something that has the ability to share data with other systems, and look for something that you think your user community will accept. So that's it. Try to keep that fairly brief and concise. Later on, if you register for the webcast, here's some of the sites that we found some of our information that we used here today. And as for next steps, if you're interested in anything you heard, want to explore any of these topics further, you can reach out to us in the link here at the bottom of the screen. And so now I'm going to pass it over, introducing Brad Simpson to show you how some of our clients are using technology to improve their processes.
Thank you, Ryan. Good afternoon, everyone. And as Ryan mentioned, really the Compass solution is a true enterprise solution. And you're seeing here just some of the applications that actually come with the system. There are over 15 different applications ranging from accounts payable, accounts receivable, human resources, legal, engineering, and operations. And so when we really look at the cost of ownership, Ryan also spoke about the infrastructure. So if you were to try to create a content solution for each of these applications, you can imagine how much cost that would be. So having a centralized enterprise solution allows you to add additional applications. So again, it comes with these 15 applications. We're adding to these constantly, and obviously you can begin and add those to you as you require. So again, one of the things we look at is, the cost of ownership. So again, any solution requires a core infrastructure. Ryan talked about the IT. So having a central system allows you to manage multiple infrastructures and databases. So IT has to understand each system they have in place. So if you can have one system that handles all of your content under one umbrella, that means there's one system that they have to maintain. The cost for training to support the solutions, backing up the system. You've got one system that backs up all of your content all across the corporation. So it makes it much easier to do that. If you look at upgrades, you've got one system that you have to upgrade, and then also shared security. So you've got a security model that actually manages all the content in your organization. In compliance, you've got a single repository to support whatever those requirements are. And probably one of the biggest costs to any organization is really the cost of employees. And so it's not unusual for us to go into an organization and we're sitting with a manager and they've got 3 different applications running at their desktop. So understanding how to add documents or add content to each of those applications and retrieve content is a training issue. How do you allow those individuals to retrieve information to be able to make timely decisions? So with Compass, what we're able to do is actually create what we call integration. So by simply adding this button on each of the applications, the manager can click that and then bring up information pertaining to that application. So any content that they need pertaining to that application, they can pull up. So any one of these, again, as long as they know how to get into the application, drill down to the information, from that one application, they can bring up the content that supports that application. We also talked about working with other organizations and actually collaborating with other organizations. So it's not unusual to have other applications that are being used out in the field. So what this allows you to do is actually using technology. So inside of our ERP system, that's what we're using internally, but we may have individuals out in the field, project managers and so forth, they're actually using a web-based application, something in the cloud. So it allows those 2 systems to stay in sync. So you may have some individuals that are looking at this web-based application, and yet through robotic technology, we're able to keep those 2 technologies in sync. So today what we're going to do is we're going to look at one application. We're going to look at accounts payable. So we'll drill into that. So the first thing with any application is really collecting content. And so with our system, we can actually bring in content, and what we try to do is eliminate any touch points. So again, if you're getting a lot of your information is coming in via email, what it allows you to do is to have those documents and that information come into your system, and then by simply dragging that to a folder within your email system, we can actually bring those documents directly into Compass and create batches from that. If you have multifunction devices, we can actually pull information out in the field. You may have remote offices. You can scan those documents to a shared drive on the network. We can pull those drives and bring those in and create batches within the system. Also, if you have a third party that's doing some of your scanning, we can bring that information directly into the system. We also use robotic technology so that if it's a website that you need to go out and gather content, someone's doing that today manually, we can actually automate that process and bring it in. So when we bring documents into the system, again, typically they're going to come in as a batch. So from here, the user can actually bring up the information they want to index. And what we've done with the system in batch indexing is really to assist the user. So all of the documents and all of the information, we can actually link to whatever back-end system you have. So this allows the user to actually key in information. So in this case, I'm going to key in the vendor number, and you can see it's going to go out and look and bring back the vendor information. So again, it's going to eliminate additional keystrokes. As we go through this process, we can also have it doing lookups on job number. So again, a job number may bring back additional information that's required to route this document down. And then we can also use it if you're using a PO system. So we can go out to your PO system. If you have open lines in your PO system, we can bring that information in and process that. So what we're able to do is eliminate a lot of the double keying that individuals are doing. And now we can index this document and bring it through the system. Once it comes into the system, then it's routed out for approval. So the approval process can take many ways. A lot of people want to route the invoice based on the invoice amount. So we can do it based on the job number, the invoice amount, or it could be a combination of those. We can also use multiple tiered approval processes. So all of those can be used to route that information out. And then once it's into your system, the manager wants to know what information is out there. What invoices do they have in flight? So this really gives them the ability to go out there and look at all of the documents that they have in flight. From here, they can look to see who those invoices are assigned to. If an individual is out sick or unavailable, has been let go from work, then they can actually take those documents and then reassign those to another individual. And so that way they can have track of where those documents are at any time. What we've also done is we have what's called casual users. And typically a project manager is out in the field. They're not in the system at all times. So they would be what we would consider a casual user. So I'm going to log in as that person. So as approver 2, who is out in the field. So what we have done is they're out in the field and they may have a tablet. So we've allowed them a very easy interface to see just the information they need to see. So a project manager out in the field would be able to log into a smart device and look at the invoices they have to approve. In this case, this is one that they need to approve because it's past due. They may have some PO requisitions they need to approve and also some HR information. So again, it gives the casual user or that person out in the field that may not be in the office at all times, they still have access through this web interface to be able to see the content they need to and process that information. We also talked a little bit about advanced capture. So we know what advanced capture is. If we look at an invoice, invoices have common information. So we can see here information. It's going to have an invoice number, invoice date, they have a PO number, and other information, but it's not always consistently in the same place. What advanced capture allows us to do is actually read that information and then automatically index that document. So when a document is automatically indexed, we've eliminated that manual indexing process. The document then comes directly into the invoicing processing portion. So now when the operator pulls up the document, all of that information is already pre-filled in. So we're eliminating that manual indexing process. So from here, if the invoice looks okay, what they're able to do is to route this invoice out. Now in this case, going through a real scenario, scanning documents into the system, approving them, getting them paid, that's a fairly simple process. But really showing the power of the system is, what about those exceptions? So we've got a scenario here where part of the product was damaged. And so what we've got is they received an email here. So they can see that part of the information product was actually damaged here. So if we look at this email, this approver has received information that this product has been damaged. So what we want to make sure is, as this routes through the process, we need to have this evidentiary information along with this. So I'm able to take this information and drag it to the document here. And so now we not only have the original invoice, but we also have the information to support that. So now we can route this out for approval. And now in the approval process, the approver is going to get this and see that there's information that needs to be processed here. So here they see that there's information. They can see that was damage to the product. And so they can actually put this on hold and wait for information back from the vendor. So from here, we can actually email the information out. So now I can email the vendor the information so that they can actually give us a credit memo for this. So eventually we do get an email back from the vendor, and we do have a credit memo here. So from here, we can bring also that document into the system, again, making sure we have all the different information supporting this transaction. Now we've got the original invoice, the credit memo, and proof that there was damaged goods. So from here, we're now ready to process this invoice. So we can rubber stamp this invoice. We're going to approve it for a short pay. I'm going to stamp it on here, and now I can say that this has actually been approved. So what happens here now is this is now being routed out to the accounts payable. So this document is actually now ready to be processed. So inside the ERP entry, they're going to pull up the documents that are ready to be processed. And rather than having to rekey this information into their ERP system, again, we're going to use this automated process. So from here, we've got the ERP system up here. The system knows what invoice we're processing here. So by simply clicking this integration link, we can actually automate this process. So now this document is vouchered inside of our ERP system. And again, after it's been vouchered in the ERP system, if someone wants to go back later and look at the information pertaining to this transaction, we've got all the data inside the ERP system, but maybe the vendor or someone calls back and wants to know why we short paid this invoice. So again, by simply clicking this integration link, we can actually go out and bring up all of the information pertaining to this transaction. So from here, we can see all of the information in the ERP system. We can see why it was processed or why it was maybe delayed here. From here, you can also see the entire history about this. So we can look at what's called the record information about this. So all of the history for this transaction would be listed here. We'd list who actually processed it through any part of the process. Any comments that were left here, we can pull that up. And then also the audit history. So again, seeing all the information pertaining to this. So again, this may be very critical for any type of incidents that you may have on a job site or for any type of change orders. So you've got a complete history for this transaction. And then the last thing we want to look at here is the manager wants to be able to see everything that's in the system from really a high-level view. So we've created a dashboard. So what this dashboard allows me to do as a manager is to see all invoices either in flight, ready to be processed, or maybe those that are tied to a specific job. So in this case, we've got invoices. We can drill down based on the vendor. We can do it based on the job or the approver, or maybe a location that we're doing work in the United States. So from here, if we simply click on any of these, it'll actually give us a drill down. So if we look at this for a particular payday, when we click it, it'll tell us what vendors are to be paid, the amount to be paid, and then what invoices are associated with that. So it really gives the AP manager a full view of everything that's in the system. Again, a true enterprise system gives you availability of all the content out there, and the dashboard is going to give you information about all of the invoices that might be in flight. So that's a high-level view of the Compass solution. So at this point, I'll turn it back over to you, Brian.
All right, thanks, Brad. Thank you, everyone, for attending today. If you have questions for us and we want to continue the conversation, we're more than happy to, and reach out to us on the link there on your screen. And hope you all have a good rest of the week. Thank you very much.